you know, the strength is in the softness.
Mm.
It's in the softness within the position. It's with the going with, you know, very kind of Eastern philosophy of the going, the kind of the yin nature of it, or the Taoist nature of it, to go with, and that's where the power is. But also the power comes because over the long term, you're allowing the body to restore.
I'd like to introduce Howard Napper. I'm here, we've moved house, so different background for the screen for people that have been seeing these sessions. But I've known Howard for, I don't know how many years now, I think since about the early 2000s. We've kind of been on each other's radar at some point. And then you really made a difference. And I'm going to show you this because I still have this. This is an article in The Independent, and you wrote the top 10 centers in the UK, and you named my studio at that time one of the top 10 centers for the work.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, and I
can't even remember that.
That was 2003, and I tell you what, Howard, that made a huge difference, because at that time, so much stuff had gone on, and I was kind of on my knees with my work, and a lot of changes had happened, and I was about to just throw the towel in. And that gave me emotionally the lift that I needed to just think, actually, this is still worth keeping going. And then, you know, we just kept going. So, you know, first of all, I want to say thank you for doing that, because that was amazing.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's what a surprise. As I said, I can't even remember that, but I'm not surprised. I would have put it, even if it would have been the top 3. So you would have been in there. So yeah. That's great. Wow.
But Howard's also, you know, you've been very prolific within the yoga world, but not only in the yoga world, and also you're well known for the DVDs that you put out. You were co-author of a book, Intelligent Exercise, as well, which I've got a copy of somewhere, still in boxes because we're still packing.
Well, I might have to borrow it one day. I don't have one anymore.
Yes, and then the recent work that you've done, and I've been really impressed with it, you know, the way, because you've taught on some of my courses, you taught on my yoga teacher trainings, and it was really profound teaching that you did there, and also invited you in to teach on my anatomy courses as well. And the work that you've done around sort of lifestyle and stress has been a real eye-opener, and I think you've helped a lot of people just understand a lot about the way that they go about their own lifestyle. So, you know, how did you get to that? And welcome, Howard, by the way.
Oh, wow. Well, thanks, guys. Yeah. How did I get to that? Well, I don't think we've got long enough, but yoga, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's really true. Yoga saved my life and changed my life. So, and I think where I was when I first came to yoga and really loved the physicality of it, and that's, looking back, I can see why, of course, I got into the physicality of it. But as I did it, and I think this happens to a lot of people, it changes. It's not the physical, you know, and it goes way beyond that, and it goes into so many different dimensions. So I just loved exploring that, and I never felt that I fitted in. I never wanted to fit in with yoga studios or yoga boxes or yoga anything. In fact, even the term yoga, I often resist, you know, because that we already have this preconceived idea about what it should be doing. And people often get a shock when they come to my classes, because it's like, well, what is this guy doing? And often I don't even know myself, but I want to be in that place. I want to be in a place where I don't know what I'm doing, and exploring and going deeper and going into different dimensions with this beautiful ability that we have with yoga, of moving into our body, and the power that just simply showing up in the body gives you, you know, because it changes everything, you know. So it's being in the body. So for me, it's taken me many years, and I think in many ways you teach what you need to learn, and I've spent my whole last probably 20 years of teaching, just trying to get into my own body from time to time, get out of my head, get out of the stories that I tell myself, and get into my body and share that with other people. So briefly, that's probably what it's meant to me, you know.
So we've both got a kind of commonality with the sort of thread of yoga that we've been working with.
Yeah.
The roots of Scaravelli's work, and of course that gets translated in so many different ways. But it had quite a profound influence on you, didn't it? I think wasn't it John Sturck that really.
Yeah. As I said, you know, I got into the physicality of yoga. You know, I came from I came from a film and television background. I had real issues with drugs and alcohol. And when I gave up drugs and alcohol, which was a real struggle, somebody said to me, "Come to a yoga class." And I was like, "No, I don't. You know, it's not for me." And I wasn't going to go to AA, or I was at home struggling, literally, you know, in a very dark place. And I went to a yoga class, and I felt it was a safe place, because it was, people weren't, you know, it wasn't about drugs and alcohol, it wasn't about anything that I was it was something completely new. But it was, the physicality almost became like a drug to me. You know, the endorphins that I was releasing became my new drug, my new fix. And I got to a place where I was pushing it so hard, getting this new fix, this endorphin fix, that I basically broke down. I overdosed. And I remember in a particular class that I really just snapped. Literally, I pushed myself so hard that I just snapped. And I couldn't do yoga. Just the thought of doing yoga made me really, almost made me sick. And I had a girlfriend at the time that was working with John. And she was going to John's class in Notting Hill, which he'd been running for a while. And she said, "Come along." I was like, no. Again, you know, resistance. But in the end, I went along, and I'm sitting there thinking, like what most people think of my class, what is this guy talking about? I'm thinking, what's he doing? It's not what I know of yoga. And I remember there was this one point we went into a back bend. And I went up into a back bend, and I was like, oh my God, what just happened there? At that point, I'd been doing yoga for about 8 or 9 years, and I'd never experienced anything like it. And I came down, and I went back up again, and it was like, my God, this is just completely different from anything I'd ever experienced. And at the end of the class, I thought, okay, well, I didn't think much of the class. It was amazing what happened to the back bend. So I'm going to come back because I want to get that same thing with the back bend. So it was this back bend that I was kind of chasing. Anyway, so of course, John ended up becoming my teacher at that point and changing everything and introducing me back into yoga in the way that I really needed. I needed a softness. I needed that openness. And that changed. And that's obviously from Scaravelli's influence and just being influenced by this beautiful, lyrical, spiritual woman, Italian woman, you know. And it was just, I mean, it's funny because just even talking about it now, it's quite emotional. It just changed so much for me, you know. And yeah, and here I am, and here you are, and here we've been together on a I would say probably a very similar journey in many ways.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like it. And, you know, it's true because there is something quite profound about, there is a moment where something in the practice just gets you like that. And it's one element, and it's like, it shifts every aspect of your understanding.
And it took me so much by surprise because I was sitting there thinking, oh yeah, you know, all of this, especially with John, because he's a character, you know, and I was there with this character and I was enjoying it, but it wasn't, I thought, I'm coming back here, you know, and then all of a sudden it was like bang, out of nowhere, just when I needed it and when I least expected it as well. So of course, my gratitude to John and my gratitude to Vanda as well for, you know, and as I said, with so much change. Do you mind closing the door? Yeah, sorry.
That's, yeah, because it's interesting. I mean, when we look at the one of the strap lines on, I think, Vanda's book, it talks about a stress-free way of doing yoga, and that really, you know, it it resonates at so many levels, and also it took me away from the hard edge way of trying to practice. You know, I've come from a background in sort of the bodybuilding and martial arts and stuff. But the moment I really started to drop into this, and I mean, I met Vanda, and the one thing that she said to me was, you know, you mustn't force your body. And of course, you know, I was like, well, why shouldn't I? And it was a very simple response she said to me is, well, because you hurt yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly.
It was just one of those, you know, of course, this is so obvious.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's it. So I think that soft, you know, I did hurt myself. That was the thing. I had literally snapped in a class. I'd been pushing so hard, and I got that. And then when I came to this work, or whatever we want to call it, obviously use Vanda as a reference, although she probably would not want that at all, which is another beautiful thing about aspect of her. But the softness, and it's funny because I also, my practice is so soft, and it's even getting softer and softer and softer and softer and softer. And at the same time, that's the yin. And then I have a martial arts background as well. And even in the martial arts, which is the yang, it's still the softness, it's still the fluidity. So it's just tapping into that. And it's, you know, the Tao Te Ching there's a beautiful opening of the Tao, or one of the passages of the Tao Te Ching. It says to know the masculine, but to go with the feminine, you know? And that kind of thing for me has been very, and yoga, I think, is that. I can't, it doesn't make sense to me to try to do yoga where all of a sudden you're closing down the body, you're locking it down, you know? And that was my first response. And it's a natural response. And from my background and from thinking that it's physical, but it took me a long time to try and kind of change that. But once I got that, that was it. There was no going back, you know?
That is exactly it. There's no going back, is there? Once that starts to happen, you get something. I tried out, once I got this idea, I started to try out these other things again. I just thought, no, I can't be here anymore. My body won't let me be here anymore.
Well, what is interesting, in fact, that's the thing, is when you try something out that is almost at the upper end of the scale, what interests me is that even though it goes into something that's very yang, you can't not bring in that yin element to it, that softness to it, that openness to it, that flow to it. So even though, whether that's, I don't know, water skiing or tennis or, you know, or just, I don't know, just everyday life, you're just always looking for that soft element within it. And that's where the practice for me becomes so interesting, because it's taught me to explore that aspect in my work, because not only my yoga work, I run a business, I manufacture yoga products as well. You know, so I had a conversation the other day with somebody who was talking about running a company and being, you know, kind of an authoritarian leader, you know, somebody that almost scares people in the company. And that's a shark, right? And I talked to him about being a dolphin. You know, you can either be a shark or you can be a dolphin. And dolphins kill sharks, right? And it completely changed his thinking about how he was running the company, because it was like, no, I don't have to, because he wasn't a shark in his nature, but he's feeling he had to be a shark as a leader, as a CEO of this, it was a pharmaceutical company, right? And he realized that no, he could be himself. He was a very introverted person, very soft, gentle guy, and he was being something that he wasn't. But you can bring in the softness even into something like business, you know? There's no boundaries now. It's everything that I do, is there's always that element that comes in for me, which is so lovely, so beautiful, and basically still keeps me alive, you know? Because again, even if we understand how you'll damage and hurt yourself within the practice if you're doing that, but if you're doing that in your life, you'll also damage and hurt yourself and end up killing yourself as well in your life if you haven't got that.
Exactly. It's,
you know,
I mean, you know, that yin yang symbol, just there's so much depth to that. It's so easy for people to use it as a logo that can be fashionable, but
Yeah.
Living into that, you realize it exists in absolutely everything that we do.
Yeah, and in the dark, there's an aspect of light.
Yeah.
And in the light, there's an aspect of dark. So it's so multidimensional. It goes so deep with that. It's not just the black and the white. It's not just the yin and the yang, the hard and the soft.
Mm.
But it's just that play, that constant play of those two things. And but then knowing the masculine and going with the feminine. It's funny that two old geezers will be talking. We're talking about knowing the masculine, going with the feminine. Yeah, it's great. I love it. More power to that.
You and I will be there with our walking sticks when we're about 99 years of age, still with long grey beards talking about them.
I hope so. Side by side, I hope we'd still be able to do a class together. That would be a lot of fun.
That'd be
great.
We've taught a few times together, and I think that I love teaching with you because there's always such a lovely interaction that we have. There's similarities in our work, but there's also such differences that add the richness to it. And you did my first anatomy course. I remember that. And we at one point, you and I think we were chatting over lunch. You and I sort of hung out quite a bit through that time, and you took me downstairs, I think, to where your offices were at some point, because at that time you were running the business from there. So that is the yoga business that you've been running. And I still have the mat that you gave me.
Oh, right. Oh, well, another surprise. Yeah, fantastic.
Brown bag that goes, this used to strap to the underside. I've still got that brown leather bag.
Great.
That was such a gift. It's been such a rich tool for me. But I was so impressed with the way that you spoke to me about the way you ran that business, or wanted that business to run, which was, in a way, kind of following some of the philosophies within the yoga as well.
Well, it has to be, yeah. I mean, listen, so the reason why I did that business really goes back to my background. I have a background of, I think you also design. I mean, right, design background. You're also graphic design, right? So mine was fashion design and so on, and I got into film and television as well. And then when I started doing yoga, I remember being in a yoga class one time and thinking, what is with all of these PVC yoga mats? What are we doing? Why are we creating a mountain of this horrible substance, and we're all doing it in the name of yoga? It just seems so odd. Why doesn't somebody do something about it, right? And then a flashbulb moment again. I thought, well, maybe that somebody should be me. And I thought, right, okay, I'm going to go out and try and produce a recycled yoga mat, which I found out later on was almost impossible. I've almost done it, actually. It's almost taken me 20 years to do it. And there's a bit of complications of it. It's doable now, but it wasn't doable back then. But I realized that I wanted to bring in yoga products. I realized yoga was changing. I realized that people needed products. So therefore, if they were going to use products, then hopefully they could be environmentally friendly and with a lot of the ethos of yoga within it. So, and then obviously running a business again, so many people think you have to run a business like a shark, and I truly believe that you can run a business like a dolphin and actually be even more successful, So, because it's not, there's a price to pay for opening a business. It's hard work. There's a lot of hard work, as with a lot of things, and there's a lot. So it's got to be satisfying for the soul as well. You've got to go into work every day and want to do it. You've got to wake up in the morning and want to do it, rather than wake up in the morning and not want to do it. So I realized that I had to run the business itself in a way that I felt was the right way. And growth goes back to what we were talking about before. A lot of going with, and just relying on my creativity. And that we're still going, we're still producing. I think when you look at yoga products, and it seems odd to talk about yoga products, but they're obviously a big part of our yoga world. But with yoga products, there's not a lot of innovation. A yoga mat, apparently used to be carpet underlay. It was Angela Farmer. It's an extraordinary story, actually, because who ever used yoga mats in India? Right? Nobody. It was Angela Farmer was in Germany. She went to in the mid-80s to find, she was in a shop and she saw some carpet underlay, and she cut a piece off to do some practice on. And she started using it as a yoga mat, ordered a few more, and her father turned around and said, "Oh, you should patent that." And she went, "No." Can you imagine if she had patented a yoga mat? You know, it was just, the idea is extraordinary, right? How much that patent would be worth now. But she didn't, and obviously the rest is history. And since then, since the yoga mat's come along, there hasn't been much evolution. You get different colors, you get different thicknesses, slightly different materials. But my thing is actually, you know, trying to find innovative ways to improve the product's performance, but also improve the environmentally, you know, sustainable nature of products as well. So that I love. I mean, that for me is a real passion. So yeah, so still doing that after all these years.
Another one here actually that you gave me some time ago.
That was a travel mat. Yeah. That was a natural rubber travel. Yeah, no.
This has been a
funny
good of mine for so long because
I've got another one. I've got something else I'm going to give you. I'm going to send you as soon as I get off the call from you. I'm going to make sure that you've got one because I think you're going to love this more than ever. It's the thing that, I mean, look, it's so weird. Sorry, it sounds like an advert now, right? But you know, it's something that I am passionate about. Again, it's the innovation and something that I'm really proud of that we developed with my business partner, who's a materials expert. So I've got somebody I work along where we get into the nature of the material and we can change the material. You know, we're not relying on stuff that's already been produced and we're just doing it in another color, as I said. So we can create new materials, which I think we've got at the moment something really exciting. So there you go. Yeah.
I love about this as well is that I mean, you know, the other thing on the flip side of this, I don't use mats a lot anymore, but I'm traveling. It's good to have something to work with. But the beauty of these is that it's like a fabric that you would have as a clothing that you would want to wear. And I think that's great, you know, yeah, okay.
I'm going to send you. So what do you use then when you're using that? So you won't use a mat because it's great. I love that. Why should we, you know, especially now, it's interesting because now with COVID-19, you know, the days of rocking up to a yoga studio and just grabbing a mat off the shelf. So, you know, now we've got this question. What, you know, because also it's a solid surface and viruses, flu virus or COVID virus can stay on the surface of up to 7 or 8 days, you know, so, you know, it's making us think about what it is that we're using. So it's a great time to really have this conversation for a lot of yoga people because that can help you go, if you find the right, I've always believed if you find the right surface or base, it helps you go deeper into your practice because it gives you the, you know, you want something to give you the stability, the connection. So it's about deepening your practice. It's not necessarily about having the latest this or, you know, that. What do you use?
Nothing. I just use So I mean, you know, this is my room. I mean, I got a rug here, so sometimes I'll be on that. I'm teaching.
You don't feed your family very well. I don't know. They're not looking very well.
I haven't been feeding them. Sorry.
I know, exactly.
But also, you know, I'll just get rid of that and use the wood, you know, or sometimes I lay something down. It needs to be as soft as this. Sometimes if I do use that. But, you know, if I'm outside, I'll do it on the grass. So I see the grass behind you.
Absolutely.
Practical grass is such a great thing to do. And
absolutely.
I see a lot of people on Brighton seafront on the grass here, and they lay the yoga mat out on the grass.
On the grass, I know.
It's distorted by the grass.
Exactly.
And just use the ground, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, before, you know, if you go into the history of a yoga mat, as we were going into a little bit before Angela Farmer discovered carpet underlay, in India, they would use a cotton duri, like a rug that you have behind you, some cotton, or they'd use lungi, or they'd just do it on the floor. And more than likely, if you look at old pictures of Iyengar, there's nothing there. You know, he didn't have a mat out. And it wasn't an idea. You just do it wherever you could. And if it was dusty, then I guess they'd use something to protect themselves a little bit. So yeah, I mean, going back to that, you know, again, maybe now we've got this opportunity to maybe even go back to that a little bit. But you know, this is interesting. Yeah.
I think having a fabric that we can work on that is a textural experience as well. There's the thing. I know.
You're describing everything I'm just about to send you. Something like that. Yeah, wait. And everybody else will just have to wait until one of your next next interviews and see it in the background to see
Okay.
what it is, perhaps.
Cool. Great. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's such a great idea though. In the mats that you produce, it's got, because they're also biodegradable as well, aren't they?
Well, I produced the first decomposable. I mean, there's a difference between biodegradable and decomposable. So PVC, it's just such a nightmare. PVC is this horrible material, but the problem is that it lasts so long. But when you're using a yoga mat, which is biodegradable or decomposable, it doesn't last very long, which is the good thing, but also the bad thing, because you could go through 5 or 6 of those mats, where you could have one PVC mat, which would last you a lifetime. So, you always, environmental issues are never black and white. They just really aren't. So we always try to struggle. But if you're moving in the right direction, and if you haven't achieved what you want to achieve, but you're working towards it, I think don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. This is the problem. It's my favorite saying at the moment. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. So if it's not quite right yet in any aspect of our life, don't let that be such a bad thing that it's not. You're moving in the right direction. So it's not perfect by any means of what we're achieving, but again, I'm trying to do things and change things in the way that we're using them, and recycled materials obviously really beneficial. Upcycling materials that have been thrown away, you can use, or would be thrown away, and you can use them instead. That's quite useful as well. So there's many ways to do it. The irony is we're using natural rubber mats, and we think, but it's so much damage is done with a natural rubber mat. You got to bring it from the rainforest. You're affecting trees. There's all kinds of issues with even using something as natural as a natural rubber mat. So they're the challenges, but they're the challenges I like. Try and work your way through that and offer variety as well.
That's great. I mean, there's a lot of integrity with that, and I think there's a lot of integrity with the nature of the practice, and what the practice would mean in its philosophies, and it's being carried through with the product as well. I think that's essential, because for as long as there's going to be yoga on the planet, there's still going to be mats required, and as much as we have a certain route with our own practice where we know that we might not need to use the mat, but we still know that there's going to be people using stuff like that, and centers would require them. So
yes. I mean, yes, unfortunately we are. There's so much in our life which is consumerism, and whether it's cars or electric lights or whatever it is. And yes, in an ideal world, but we can't let perfect be the enemy of the good. And we do need to take so many actions. I mean, it's not just talking about it as well, It's such a heavy and emotive subject, obviously, for so many of us. But I think for me, I don't know. It's not perfect, and I'm not perfect, and I just keep trying to do the best I can each time that I come to my practice, or if I come to designing and creating a product.
It's great. I mean, coming from a design background, straight away my eye catches what you've done. It's aesthetically pleasing. The whole thing.
Well,
lovely nuance.
my strap line is live to inspire.
Yeah.
And the reason why I chose that, because if I was going to create product, then I had to try and create it in a way that is about inspiration. Because it's no good just creating the product and just having it out there sitting in the shop and somebody comes along and buys it or doesn't buy it. For me, it had to be about, again, deepening the experience. So if I can create a product that can deepen somebody's yoga experience, then that for me is a means to an end. That for me is like, okay, so at least the product, yes, there's a cost to that product, but there's a benefit to it as well. So it's not just on that surface level. Hopefully it goes deeper. So if I'm inspiring in some way, some small way for somebody to deepen or begin their practice or deepen their practice, then for me, then that product, it offsets the negativity of creating a product. Does that make sense?
No, I got it.
And that's not a lot of people will obviously disagree with that, but that's what I believe.
It is what it is, as they say.
yeah, exactly.
So the other thing is, you did a TED talk as well, didn't you, some time ago at Bournemouth University?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, scariest moment of my life.
I can imagine. It's I think they look quite scary moments.
They are scary. They are scary.
It was great, the information you put across there. I mean, you know, how did that come about? And you know, I'm going to take it into the stuff that you're doing nowadays, really, and the stuff that you're.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to innovate, as I said, and you know, if I'm innovating with products, I'm trying to innovate with my work, and my work became so lifestyle based. It wasn't ever really anything. Physicality was an important part of it, but the physicality was again, it was a multi-layered. So I started realizing that I was working around 3 pillars. One was movement and exercise, and I don't put movement with exercise because there's non-exercise activity. So there's going to the gym or going to your yoga class or going on a run or doing whatever it is you do, that's exercise. But there's so much we can do within our day, which is non-exercise activity, which is important because we're sitting for so long. And sitting's become the new smoking, as they say. There's 21 chronic diseases related to sitting. So getting people to think about movement, right? Just simple movement. Starts with the breath. Starts with the breath, because that's the first movement, right? That's it. And then it goes into things like walking, you know, just very basic things. And it's incredible when you really build somebody who's struggling, you know, deal with a lot of people. Mainly a lot of people at the moment with mental health issues and physical issues as well, but a lot of mental health issues. And you build somebody up from the breath and walking and moving, swimming, running, whatever it may be, walking up the stairs, taking a dog for a walk, whatever, you know, build that up. That's incredible. Mentally, how that can change somebody's life. Because I'm sitting in my desk all day long, and then I go to the gym for half an hour. Or I go to a yoga class once or twice a week. It's not enough, you know, because I'm not moving. Right? It's great that I'm doing that, but the rest of the time I'm just, you know, so that fascinated me. So the whole thing of movement, and obviously we go in a lot of detail with that. Food and nutrition as well. So again, that was another pillar. So I had movement and exercise and activity. Food and nutrition. So obviously the building blocks of our cells are nutrition, oxygen and nutrition. And so, you know, thinking about nutrition, I'm not a nutritionist, but you know, there's so much great information out there as well now. You can find information about nutrition. A lot of it's common sense. And obviously, the main thing with food for me was eating real food. I love cooking, I love food, and I love real food. And I think that there's, you know, I love chopping, for example. You know, I find that a meditation. There was always somebody chopping food in the house, you know, not that long ago. People don't chop food, we don't chop so much, you know. It was getting back into almost like my grandmother's cooking. You know, I was getting back into a lot of old slow cooking and stuff like that, but eating real food, because a lot of stuff that we eat as far as food, it looks like food, but it's not actually food. So that's food and nutrition. But those two, interestingly enough, those 2 pillars rested on the 3rd pillar. And that was the one where, you know, I felt, you know, I will obviously feel quite strongly about this, was rest and restoration, you know. And whatever you were doing with these other 2 pillars, movement and activity, exercise and activity, and food and nutrition, unless you had your rest and restoration as a stable base, the other 2 pillars would collapse, basically. So sleep, for example, meditation, body work, you know, anything that comes into that kind of restorative category, you know, that builds, because most of our life is anabolic. It's catabolic rather. Right, most of our life is catabolic, and we're breaking down, and the diseases that we tend to suffer from now are degenerative diseases, heart disease, cancer, neurological diseases. So they're all about breaking down. We're breaking down more than we're building up, and that's the nature of you know, life. But you want to build up. You want to build up more than you're breaking down, ideally. So it needs to be anabolic. So that 3rd and final pillar, which is my main and most important pillar, is this anabolic build-up part of life and practice and whatever it may be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I get it, because it's something that you had said on the last time you taught on one of my groups, is that It goes along the lines of that we're, you know, overstimulated and undernourished or something.
Overstimulated, under-restored, and that's majority. Me too. I mean, this is it. I'm overstimulated, under-restored, and you know, and once I realized that, and the dangers. Well, I say the dangers. I mean, we need breakdown and build up. You know, this is the whole nature of metabolism. It's that you're breaking down and you're building up, breaking down and you're building up. Some things like skin cells break down and build up within 4 days. Bone cells, 7 years, perhaps. You know, every single cell per heart, except a few cells in our heart, over a period of time will break down and build up. But degeneration and aging, what happens with us is we start to break down much more. When you're young, of course, you're building up more than you're breaking down. But as you get older, it flips. But there's so many things that you can do to change, to support that process. If you understand that a lot of the problems that we have mentally and physically is that we're breaking down rather than building up. So build up as much as you. So sleep for me is a huge thing. I work a lot with sleep, especially even and talk about young. I mean, I've got young children that are athletes. You know, getting them to understand, and in athletics, I mean, there's a great quote from Roger Federer that he said. Somebody after an interview, somebody said to him, you know, before a big tournament, do you manage to get any sleep? He said, not really. He said, I only sleep. His quote was something like, I only sleep for 10 hours instead of 12. You know, because he's putting his body under so much pressure. He knows that he's got to have that restoration in order to push yourself by all means, but make sure whatever you're doing, in any way you're pushing yourself, you've got that balance of restoration to build yourself back up, and then you can push yourself even further.
Yeah,
you know, no good just pushing ourselves.
It's interesting that, because it almost takes it full circle really to coming back to the nature of the practice, because something that's important to me is finding economy of effort. So that when we're going through our practice, can we move into a practice that might appear to be stressful, but do it in a calm way, so that whilst moving, you're restoring at the same time?
Yeah, I have a very simple model with this. Imagine three concentric circles, rather, one in the middle, one on further out, and one further out. The middle circle is comfort zone, right? And then the next circle out I describe as growth zone, and the next circle out I describe as panic zone. We don't grow in our comfort zone, and we don't grow in our panic zone. We grow in our growth zone, which is just slightly outside of our comfort zone. So we need to, in the practice, we need to be at that place where I feel that we're challenging ourselves just that little bit, because it stimulates growth, you know? And if we go too far outside of that, then we're in our panic zone and we don't grow, and we become catabolic, and we're starting to break down, you know? So we're working with those hormones, you know, we're not working with growth hormones. But if you can just break down a little bit. You know, we think of it when we go to the gym. If I go to the gym and I lift up a weight, I'm not making my muscles stronger. I'm making it weaker. But then just that little bit, if it's too much, it's constantly breaking down. If I just do it a little bit and then give it rest, it's the rest and restoration. And then the body's intelligence comes back in and think, oh, right, you're using that muscle. So when you're going to use it and I'm going to restore it, I'm going to build it back up and I'm going to make it stronger. If I break my bone, right, or I cut myself, I've broken it down, but the body's intelligence comes back and makes it stronger. We call it a scar, but it's stronger than it was before. So with the rest and we want to break down, but we want to also have that rest and restoration, that emphasis on restoration. We come back stronger. Yeah. That's the way I look at it, you know. And that's why the practice is so powerful to me, because it's so, you know, the strength is in the softness. Mm. It's in the softness within the position. It's with the going with, you know, very kind of Eastern philosophy of the kind of the yin nature of it, or the Taoist nature of it, to go with, and that's where the power is. but also the power comes because over the long term, you're allowing the body to restore.
Yeah.
You know, and if you have that emphasis on restoration, then that's what gives you the ability to push yourself in whatever area, tennis or whatever area, you know, business, whatever area you want to.
Yeah.
That's my take on it anyway.
And I think because they're really important tools to have, and I think once we know we have those tools, we then know how we can start to integrate into life, do what we need to do, and then take our own responsibility for how we take care of ourselves in that moment. You know?
Yeah. You know, we've given over so much responsibility to powers. You know, whether that's the doctor or that's politicians, and I think there's a little bit of a kickback against that now. There's a lot of conspiracy going on in the world, but you know, that's also giving our powers away. It almost seems it's gone from one extreme to the other extreme. But in the middle, there's good information. You know, we've all got access to amazing information. There's a lot of rubbish on the internet right now, but there's a lot of really good information as well. And it's just understanding that. And, you know, I think the solution to a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world right now is education. It's just educating and empowering ourselves. You know, it's very hard if you haven't empowered yourself to realize what is true right now, you know. And so, you know, taking that responsibility yourself, not giving it over to somebody else, I think is really possibly more important now than it's ever been in my lifetime anyway, at least.
I fully agree with that. You know, it feels the same way to me as well. It's so important now.
It is.
Informed. And yeah, to take that sort of self-responsibility if people are that way inclined, and you know, can we, again, it comes back to the nature of the practice, can we create the conditions for the person to take that responsibility for themselves as well? And they need to be educated.
Yes. No, I love that. I mean, I love that concept because I've never felt that I've ever, you know, I never feel as though I'm somebody's teacher. I don't want to be somebody's teacher. I want them to take responsibility. I want them to be, in many ways, to be their own teacher and their own pupil. The same way that I always felt that I was my own teacher and my own pupil. And I'll work with people and I'll do stuff, but I'm not, you know, I don't feel as though I'm somebody's, I don't want them to be, you know, I think what I've noticed around yoga, there's a lot of kind of guru mentality, which is fine, which is great. And I don't have any problem with that if somebody finds strength with, you know, believing that a teacher will be your guru. But I think for me, the gurus that I've appreciated and I've been attracted to have been the ones that have almost flipped it around to be your own Sadguru. Sadguru is the true guru, your own guru. Your own is you. You know, the knowledge that and this is, for me, the beauty of going deep within the body, because once we go deep into the body, we come into the present moment, because the body doesn't have a conversation with itself like we're having a conversation, or I have a conversation with myself. It doesn't understand it's English. It doesn't understand that it's Saturday the way that my intellect does. My body speaks in chemicals. It's a completely different language. And it doesn't go into the past and project into the future. It's right here, right now. And when I drop into that space, you know, I go beyond thought, because the thinking is not who I am. You know, my mind thinks, my ears hear, my eyes see. They're all aspects of myself, but it's not who I am. So when I move into the body, I come into that present moment, it's not that narrow gap between the past and the future. It's something that goes whoosh and opens up. And I get into that knowledge, that self-knowledge of who I am, you know, and it's not the smallest part of me, it's the biggest part of me. So, you know, that ability to get to that space, and again, once, it's like we said before, once you experience that, you can't go back. You know, you might be drawn back out by all these little dramas and all of these conversations that we have in our head with ourselves and all the stories we tell ourselves. But the practice brings us back to that experience of dropping into that space, you know, and that's, you know, and I can't describe it. I can't talk about it, because as soon as I describe it, we were back up in our heads again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something that you do so beautifully, though, and this happens every time in teaching. And you know, you talk a lot about you know, moving towards the parasympathetic.
Yeah.
Or your delivery, even the quality of your voice when you're teaching, immediately has someone go to that place, which is great. Yes, that's such a beautiful thing to observe, because I've witnessed your teaching, especially when you've been in my groups, and it's been great to be the person that just sits at the side and I just watch my students respond, and I'm looking at their body and see how their faces change and their eyes are shut when that's going on, and your voice is kind of washing around them, and they drop in. You know, so your voice has already got them there, and I think that's a really profound skill. That you're not even necessarily trying to do it. You don't fake it. You have that quality.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not something that I'm aware of. I did have somebody come up to me once and say, she said, I've got a couple of your DVDs, and she said, I really like them. They put me to sleep at night. I don't know whether to say that as a compliment or not, but you know, so yeah, but yeah, I don't know if that really, I mean, it has been said to me before, and I'm glad that I can use that. It's not something I'm conscious of though, but you know, what I am conscious of is the passion, the experience that I've had of dropping into that space and knowing how powerful, knowing how simple, the simplicity of it is it's complex in its simplicity. But when you can say, look, it's okay. You know, we don't need to, we are not overstimulated, under restored. Overstimulated means that we go for all of the kind of complex stuff, but then just trying to get that passion to come across of what it really means to me. Because as I said at the very beginning, it's not an exaggeration to say that experience really saved and changed my life. You know, what can you do once something like that has happened? You can only just try to pay it forward.
Yeah,
you know?
That's perfectly put. Actually, paying it forwards.
Yeah.
So right now then, is this still the sort of thrust of where you're going? Is there anything else that's coming up for you with this, with your company?
I don't know. It's very strange actually. I think, you know, we're in an extraordinary time, especially with something like yoga. Yoga studios just opening up again. I haven't taught in-person classes for a number. I've done some private classes, but in-person classes I haven't taught for a while. I'm due to teach one when I get back next week. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to be in a studio with people, but I'm also going to have people online as well.
Yeah.
You know, Try Yoga, they're fitting up their studios. So we're in a, you know, so now I could be teaching with somebody who's in front of me, but I could also be teaching with somebody who's halfway around the world.
Yeah.
You know, that's a bizarre concept. I'm happy with, I mean, I'm okay with that. I think, you know, the evolution of yoga, I think is really important to me. I think that it needs to be moving on in many, many ways. I think in many ways we've appropriated yoga from India in a way that I'm not very comfortable with. You know, we use a lot of cultural appropriation from India, and I think that we can take an essence from it and a value from it, but make it our own, and make it, as long as we still value the roots of it, and make it our own. And I think with any, people are obviously reluctant to change. Some people will embrace the fact that you can now do Zoom classes, yoga classes, and so on, because it helps. But I think as teachers, it's a challenge, because it's opening us up to new ways to communicate. You know, you've got somebody in front of you, but you've also got to be connecting with that person on the other end of that Zoom. And who's ever done that before? I mean, 20 years of teaching yoga, you know, that's something completely kind of new.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to be looking at with a studio that I'll be teaching at in Windsor, that will probably do a mix of the two.
Yeah, it will be a hybrid. I think the future is going to be very much hybrid, you know. Which again, I mean,
go on, sorry.
No, I think as teachers, it just opens us up. You know, some teachers, it's hard. I find Zoom calls actually quite hard. I think you, like me, I think we're quite introverted, really, although we're thrust out in front of a lot of people might find that quite surprising because we're out there in front of a lot of people talking, but it doesn't come easy to me. And, you know, it doesn't come easy to me doing an in-person class in the way that it doesn't come easy to me doing something. You know, I used to have to teach 6 million people on national television every morning. It wasn't something that I went after, and it wasn't it was really painful. And I find doing stuff like that quite painful. But at the same time, I know that that's the way that we're starting to communicate, you know, so it's not easy, but at the same time, I know that I've got to try and find ways to do it where I feel comfortable. So I haven't done it yet. I mean, I haven't done a class where they had to do both, you know, in person and virtual.
Well, actually, I've seen, you know, stuff that you've done. I mean, I've seen the DVDs that you've done, and there's that footage of you with, I think it's Penny next to the pool, the swimming pool.
Yeah.
But the thing about that struck me is that it might as well just been a one-to-one that someone was just had a camera on, because you have an ease about you in the way that you teach, as much as if sometimes it might not feel like that. It actually flows really well, and it doesn't look like it's faked for a camera, where a lot of people put on the show in front of a camera. You have an ease of teaching that is very comfortable and feels good to be around. You know, even in seeing that on screen is really good.
As I say, I mean, that's the way that I feel that the only way that I can do it. As an introvert, I can't do it as a show. No. I can't okay, we're gonna do the yoga thing on camera, and you know, I'm gonna show you my best moves and all this and the other. I can't do that. It's just too painful for me to do that. I can't. It's just you know what? It's the same way I'm not on social media. It's just too painful for me. As somebody who's quite introverted, I can't put myself out in that way. So the only way that I can bring myself to be in that position is almost to pretend that it's just, you know, me and you, or you know, you know what I mean? And then that's the way I have to do it. But I was thinking, you know, unfortunately, I think again, it sounds like a grumpy old man, but I think that, you know, there's a lot of this lot of this tell at the moment that I really struggle with. You know, I'm not on any social media. I don't do any social media at all. I've got some for the business, but I even struggle with that. It's not something that I naturally come to, because so you know, doing Zoom classes, or they take a lot out of me. You know, as I said, the TED Talk, the most painful experience I've ever had in my life. You know, because it has to be out there. It's not something that I find, but at the same time, paying it forward is very important to me, and helping others. And it sounds corny again, but I believe personally that's the purpose of my life, and that's where I find meaning and purpose in my life, is by paying it forward and connecting with others. So I'll do it because I love that. And I think it's important. So trying to strike that balance is never easy. And it's funny because I've never really spoken about that before. And maybe a lot of people, you know, people that have worked for me for many years probably would never even guess that. But I don't know. There you go. You got me to open up. It's your ease. It's your ease in the fact that I love you so much.
Oh, thank you. The feeling's beautiful. You know that as well. I mean, you know, you and I have been talking about, we've talked together before, and maybe I think, you know, it'd be lovely to do some teaching with you like this on Zoom. We can do some stuff together. Would be good.
Yeah. But if I'm cringing up in the corner, you know what? You know.
Okay, don't worry. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably a good point to wrap up here. But how do people find you if they need to connect with you? Where do they find you through various processes? You've got a website, haven't you? And there's
I've got a website that I haven't touched in 6 years.
Right. Okay.
So I don't even know what it's on it. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on anything like that. You can email me at howard@howardnapper.com. But the best thing always is just to rock up to a class and come and say hello. That I love.
Yeah.
You know, that I love. So yeah, I mean, that's just to emphasize what I was just saying. I mean, there's not many ways people can can find me. I'm very old school in that sense. So,
No,
but I would love to, you know, working with you is great, because what I feel is that you and I bounce.
Mm.
That's what is great. I mean, we really have we're kindred spirits in many ways, and you know, we have got our own stuff going on. But what's so lovely is that we bounce. I feel that we bounce well together. So wherever you take it, I feel I'm happy to go, and I like to, you know, maybe that's the same. Wherever I take it, you're happy to go as well. So, you know, it's always a great experience to do that.
You know, I can see that, you know, because the last time we talked together was quite some time back, but you know, it would always connect, and we could do this through the rest of our life at various key moments. And
Yeah.
you know, the thing is with us is that we just pick it up where we left off.
Yeah, well, like right now, I mean, you know, that's it. So yeah, so I always leave it up to you. I don't organize much, but you're a little bit more organized than I am. So, you know, if I ever get an invitation from you, you can always guarantee I'll be there.
Okay. Oh, that's coming very quickly, that invitation.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you so much for doing this.
All right, mate. Yeah, well, listen, lovely to see you, and I'm very happy that you're in your new home and you're settled.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just think you've got to give your family a little bit more to eat back there. All right, mate. Lots of love.